to East Coast DNA. I'm your host, Darcy Walsh, and today's guest, we have Sean MacGillivray. Welcome, Sean.
How you doing?
So we're here specifically today to talk about All Right Already, I guess, but I was excited to be able to sit and talk to you even back, well, I met you back at the ECMAs.
It's true, yeah.
You were there supporting Alicia Penney, and I told her that I would promote her, and I changed my setup. So like I do have her CD here.
Sweet.
It's excellent. It's still in rotation. It's very handy to me.
Awesome.
So aside from that cameo in the interview we had back then, I am aware of you through multiple other people
Okay.
because you do collaborate with quite a people outside of All Right Already, but even All Right Already is a different lineup with you all the time.
Yeah,
And
it's
there's
true.
quite a bit of history to the band.
Yep.
But even going maybe I don't know when the timelines overlap, but because you're on my podcast, a lot of people that I talk to that maybe don't even watch the podcast, people that aren't like diehard music fans or people that have only passively seen it and they just have questions. A lot of people ask me like where I get the idea, or and people that are into this kind of thing have seen a million variations of this.
Okay.
But long time ago, when I wasn't doing anything like this, I used to work in record stores and I was a big music fan. And then I had a young family at a young age. So I wasn't able to go out to shows as often as I would like. And the internet wasn't quite exactly what we have today.
Mm.
But you, Trevor Murphy was one of these people too. He was somebody I was aware of as kind of a indie music media personality.
Okay, yeah.
And you yourself were operating the locals forums.
It's true.
So did you do CB locals as well?
So the whole thing started in Cape Breton.
Yeah.
And I think and there were ways in which Cape Bretoners were early adopters of technology that sort of lent itself to this sort of thing. Um, IRC kind of preceded the locals sort of network as the sort of way of communicating that people use, because there's all these sort of satellite communities in industrial Cape Breton. Like you've got like North Sydney, New Waterford, Glace Bay, Sydney Mines, and Sydney, and they're all sort of like 20 minutes to 30 minutes apart from each other. And so you've got kind of a distributed population of young people, and so the internet was a great way to do that sort of regional communication. And so this guy Harry Doyle, I don't know if you know Harry. He's actually in a band with Alicia called Static in Action, and so he and I are old friends since junior high. We both got our sort of strats for Christmas the same year, and in junior high, and started playing in punk bands. And he and I both sort of independently of each other started working at computers in general. So this was in, like, to date myself, this is in 1995
Hmm.
when I went on to university. And like, so Harry was like tearing down old 8086 machines, like monochrome monitor machines, and putting them on the internet when they had never been intended for that purpose. And I started learning about web development. I was really fascinated with the web. I didn't have any access to the internet until I went to university in 95. And then all of a sudden I had nearly unfettered access to it. I was lucky I had a student union job the whole time. So I had access to a computer all of a sudden, pretty much as often as I wanted. And so and web development was really simple then.
Hmm.
So it was easy to kind of like read about it and pick it up and learn it. And so, Harry and I both got into web dev, and he created this little blog site called CB Locals and then grafted a message board onto it. And it was quite successful. And it was our way of finding out about shows, because this was, before Facebook, like in the MySpace era, right? So there wasn't really anything else that fulfilled that function and did it regionally. So that's why I think CB Locals was successful, and it became a sort of cultural nexus. And it was never a business. Like, it was never
Hmm.
a revenue stream. It was like, the server was a motherboard in a pizza box somewhere plugged into a network card. Like, it was all very low budget, and serving a small amount of people. Maybe it seems contrary to the internet is this sort of inherently global thing, but using it for something locally oriented was, I think, in that case, what made it successful. And so we exported that model. There was basically three of us at the core of it, like Harry Doyle, Mike Slavin, and myself. and some other folks involved too. And we set up one in Halifax, and I became its senior administrator when I moved to Halifax in '98 after I finished university. And so, and I got right into the music scene here as soon as I arrived. And we started up a Halifax Locals, and it, I think, did pretty well. Like, people would write to me and want to advertise it, and I would just, on it rather than, pay to advertise on it. We even had a spot for a banner, but we just put like, show things and just like photos and stuff in there. We never, it was almost like taunting people who wanted to pay to advertise on the site. Like, oh, there's a space, you just can't have it. But yeah, so I was the person who kind of like, I didn't do a lot of the dev work on it. Like, that was largely Harry. I did a lot of the, I guess the heavy lifting on the human resources side, because with Locals, we always wanted the people most invested in the correctness of the information to be the ones doing the work of entering it. We wanted to be, I want the promoters, the all ages promoters, Condon from the Pavilion and Greg from the Birdland or whatever, or the Marquee at that point, or Stage 9, to be able to enter their own events into Locals. And so recruiting those people and getting them involved and trying to have a current relevant roster of people, and some folks who were just like strictly events editors, like in the same way that the Coast used to have one. The Coast used to have someone who just did the listings, right? The event listings. So we had people doing that in a volunteer capacity too. And so that's what I did on Locals largely, was recruit those people, bring down the banhammer of justice on the message boards when it was warranted. It was certainly kind of the Wild West back then, but yeah, it was superseded by other technologies. It's funny. It's only in the last year or so that I thought about, like, what if we started it up again? Like, because now there isn't, like, there are things that purport to do the shows and like the telling you what the hell's going on tonight end of what Locals used to do, but none of them do it very well, and none of them have broad enough adoption. Like, you can't, like, people don't really use Facebook for that anymore. Instagram's inherently bad at it. Twitter's inherently bad at it. So there's like Songkick, which is like, people get sort of like finagled into using Songkick to list their shows because it integrates with Bandcamp. I've been tempted to use it, but it's not the kind of thing that you could really rely on for, like, I want to know the canonical of what's going on tonight, and I want to know it from the source. And so, yeah, more recently, I'm like, well, how would we go about it now? Like, I thought about making it a Mastodon instance. Mastodon is non-trivial to run. It's pretty. I've looked into like what's involved in actually hosting it. Like, there was one that started up in Halifax called halifaxsocial.ca that, like, it lasted less than a year because it's expensive and onerous to operate them. The stack they use is a little, like, the different server components are, I don't know, it's a bit much for a lot of people to take on. So, but yeah, I have thought more recently, it's almost time again. It's almost like there isn't, because everyone started to rely on Facebook for events, right? Like, it was effective. Like,
yeah. Now, exactly to your point, now that most of the music scene is using Instagram for communication, which is fairly convenient. Like, I have a lot of success getting a hold of people that way. But yeah, it's not, I advertise all the time for the show and everything, but yeah, if somebody's not looking that day, you have to do another ad really to catch someone's attention for a show. So then you're doing it every day. And I know myself, if I see the same ads every day, eventually I'm not really reading anything. If there's any new information, I'm not picking it up. I got the gist from the last 4 ads, right?
It's
and
true.
That's no knock on it, it's just the way it is. So yeah, there is a gap out there. And there's, much like how I said, there's other people doing what I'm doing. I know that there's lists out there. There's different community websites out there. Like, the Coast does maintain an article that will have, like, for a block of time, the events in HRM, like the major events. But I mean, there's indie events in there too, right? So
there is,
they
to
do
an
a
extent,
fairly good job.
I find that, like, yeah, the Coast, I mean, I used to work for the Coast, full disclosure. I was its production manager in 2004. And it's sad to see, like, the death of the print media industry and the way that it has taken down the alt newspapers. I forget what they're called. I almost forget the word for them anymore. You scarcely see such a thing published anymore on paper. Alt weeklies. There we are. So I forgot the term for it. But, and what killed a lot of those was Kijiji in ways. Kijiji and Craigslist, because a lot of the bigger ones, especially like the Georgia Strait from Vancouver and other bigger ones like Now, relied heavily on their classifieds business, which really got cannibalized by Kijiji and Craigslist. And the coast never had that much of a well-developed classifieds business to begin with, so they were a little better insulated against the eventual tide of like, but print advertising is the rest of their revenue stream pretty much, and like that's dying now because like it's much more expensive to do print advertising than, and you don't ever have, like for a free publication, like you have their estimates about circulation, but you don't have any kind of assurance as to like how many people saw it, who were they, your ad spend dollar for dollar, of course, is going to be a lot more effective online. And so, so we're seeing a shrinking of those publications and a shrinking of the resources they have to bring to bear to do that critical local content. And that's another of the reasons that I was like, I keep looking for like, okay, where's my authoritative canonical, here's everything that's going on tonight. I only really care about 4 or 5 venues. Let's, give me the scoop. But and it's got to be like city oriented, right? And that was always kind of the model with locals, is like, PEI locals was basically Charlottetown locals. Like it functioned like, PEI is small enough that like it would cover a number. If there's a show happening in West Royalty, it'll be on PEI locals kind of thing. But it's always like regionalized, and having that like the savvy of like, okay, we know what people want to find out about, and we know where and when. Let's provide that and just that and make it easy for them, is like not really a thing that, it's something that Facebook happily did for us for a long time. It did that curve of like, when a social media property is on the ascent and they're investing lots of time to make it great, and then they have to make it profitable, and then it becomes they spend years making it worse to use. And so, a lot of the platforms are on that sort of descendant curve now, decreasing utility, and you can't get anything out of them without spending money. So so maybe there's time for locals again. Who knows?
Yeah, keep an eye out for something. There definitely is a need out there for something to at least centralize all the content that's out there, because like there's so much. It's hard to keep up with. So
true.
Kudos to doing that back in the day, and I do hope that I do see somebody out there doing something, or like yourself, I also sit here and I'm like, maybe I should do something sometime. So I don't know. Who knows? There's a lot of us out there that like this stuff. So I mean, somebody's eventually going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I also wanted to get a little plug in that's tied in with your music career, but some of the people I would know of you through are not necessarily people I would mention very often on the podcast. A couple of them have been mentioned before, though. Some McLeans from Pictou area, so not far from me.
Nick and Gavin McLean?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Legends, both of them.
Yes, absolutely. So you played with Gabrielle as well?
Yeah, so Gabrielle Papillon is my partner in life, the love of my life. She's upstairs tootling around right now. And so I have at times been her drummer, her bassist, and her audio technician.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it sort of depends on the budget and what people need, because I do a lot of different things. Like I've been the technical director of the Halifax Pop Explosion and of Music Nova Scotia. So I have kind of that, and like I was a club audio technician for years. I'm also a backline technician for 211 backline on occasion. Every once in a while when they need people. So there's all kinds of things that I've done. I play bass, drums, guitar. I don't tell people I play keyboards, largely because it's not true. I don't play keyboards, but I own some. I know more about the knobs than the keys. I'll put it that way. But yeah, so there's all kinds of ways I find to be useful to Gab and to others. And of course, Nick has been her guitarist for a long time, and a really, really great, gifted, dedicated, disciplined musician.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's super, super professional about everything. Like, he's a great guy too. He's always smiling.
Oh, and he's an absolute, Swiss Army knife in Gab's band. Like he's different. He's got, like a lap steel on a stand, and he's got several guitars and a keyboard in front of him, and he's singing backup harmonies. And he's a really, really versatile, dedicated musician, and I'm a really affable guy, like you said. So I'm glad he's a music educator as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't see all you guys performing here in Pictou County then. I don't. When was the last time that happened?
Gab actually just played like a quasi-secret house show out by her folks' place in Mulberry Beach. Weekends ago, I think, or last weekend, with one of the Alcorns, one of the young. Katie Krawchuk, I think, was the opener.
Okay.
And the show was at the Krawchuks are old family friends of Gab's family, and so it was sort of they're selling that house, and it's a big old house with a big tree up the middle of it. It's incredible to behold and a pleasure to play there. So that's the last time Gab played there. We've been pretty low key since the Rona. Gab's mom is a double transplant recipient. Is on a double helping of immunosuppressants, and so in general, we are both more aware and more careful of the Rona. And like I'm also, as you might have inferred, an enormously busy person. I don't have 5 to 10 days to get this thing.
Yeah.
So I'm actually still masking everywhere. Like I was out shooting video of the Weezer tribute down at the Seahorse this weekend past, fully N95'd the whole time. That's basically how I do. And there's very few restaurants I eat in these days. And I'm still like a fair bit cautious of all that stuff. And so Gab and I are both in our ways easing back into performing. Like I'm starting to do more shows again. I'm starting to, okay, when we play Gus's, I'll wear the mask until I get on. And then like actually the last time we played Gus's, which was a few weekends ago, my mask got caught in my in-ears, which I so when I took it off, because I wore it right until I got there and I had my ears in already. And then I took the mask off, but the ears are through the loops of the mask, and so it's hanging off the back of my head. So it's been a journey. It's been a magical journey of discovery, learning how to live with the Rona, I guess, and live with the risk. And Gab has been working on a musical, actually. Gab and I just sat down and edited video for like a 4-minute pitch video for her musical that's inspired by her song "Go Into the Night." It's basically it is a whole narrative, because that song is about the history of her family, and so she's written this musical that's like an embellished version of that story, with all original music from Gab, and it's been really, really well received, and she's got some really great people interested in it here and elsewhere. So that's been the focus of her efforts for most of the last 2 years. She's also been doing some production stuff. Actually, she's producing for some other artists now. She's branching out into that. She's got a studio set up. Actually, it's so we're both in the basement of our sort of split entry house, and so you come down the stairs, and one side is my studio, where we are right now, and across the hall is hers. And there's what we call a snake, so an audio bundle of cables that runs under the stairs from her space into mine, so she can use my space as a vocal booth for her space, basically, because I've got a gasketed outdoor door that I can close off and kind of like isolate my space. So yeah, so we've been working on stuff together. Like we did some, like during the height of the Rona, the lockdowns, we did some videos. I took it upon, I just figured it was time to learn video. That's why I've got all this now. And by that, I mean all of these things. So yeah, so we've been busy doing this and that, but the focus for Gab for the last while has really been the musical, and it's called Mind the Light. She workshopped it with Eastern Front Theater just recently over at Albany Landing to rave reviews. I cried 3 times. And I'm not a crier. So yeah, it was really, really moving, and it's been a really new, promising direction for her creatively, because she's always had this interest in musical theater. So yeah, so that's one of the reasons, besides the fact that, you know, her mom was vulnerable and we are cautious of like, and there were really long periods of time, you know, when she was prepping for this workshop that she was doing. And the workshop is like, I'm learning about all this stuff now. It's a little, it's like when you see the cast of a TV show doing like a first read, like a table, like a round almost, it's sort of like that, but a performance. And it's, you know, on a stage, and they've got like music stands and whatever, and they're like reading their lines or singing their lines, and they're seated. And so it's not blocked or anything. There isn't really wardrobe as such. It's just sort of a run through, but it's a sort of a milestone for the production's development. And so leading up to that, like she's got people coming in from Toronto and like all these actors involved, and like there is no do it tomorrow. There is no, right? It's do or die. It's got to happen. So everyone's got to be careful. Everyone's masked in rehearsal. Everyone's, you know, doing what they can. And likewise, I had to be, you know, I was really trying to make sure that I wasn't taking like any kind of risks of bringing the Rona home. Like it would ruin everything. It would ruin months of work. And it would be very difficult to recover from. So like, yeah, stakes are high with that stuff. And so it's kind of like it's caused us not to get out as much maybe as we would prefer, but like we're starting to get back out now. Like I'm starting to get playing shows again. Filled in a few times this year for like Cluttered and for Pillow Fight on various instruments. In some cases with 3.5 hours notice. I filled in for Cluttered, I think last February, and it was an illness, basically, like someone was sick that day, and so I had 3 hours to learn 30 minutes of music. But I had shot some video for them already, so I had some familiarity with it. So it wasn't as bad as all that, and it was just bass. But yeah, so getting out there again. But it's been a journey, and just kind of like dipping my toes in, just like seeing what I can get away with, seeing how careful can I be within reason. What kinds of things like, can I do Gus's? Can I, you know, it's a big crowded room with probably not amazing HVAC, so like who knows? But so far so good.
Yeah, I've grown reaccustomed to going out myself, but I'm still getting used to having colds because I didn't for so long. And I will say, like, it's notable. East Coast DNA is Darcy and Andrew, and there's been no Andrew on here for months. And that's a casualty of COVID because he has long-term symptoms.
Really?
So, I mean, he's okay, but he can only do so much in a day.
So it's
So
like
he has less time in a day than he used to, basically. So I mean that sucks. Like, you know yourself, like he was quite busy, like doing this and a couple other shows and full-time paramedic,
oh
a
wow.
husband and a father. So I
Wow.
mean, yeah, it is something that I was super cautious with myself. So I do see people. I did notice that you had the mask on back in May, and actually I've seen Gabrielle out there. We don't know each other, but I've seen her out with Tara Thorne, actually, from Dance Movie.
Yeah. To bring it right back around.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Is she involved at all in the theater production, Tara?
I no, except for like sort of moral support
Yeah,
and
yeah.
a bit of a second set of ears the odd time, I don't think, but which is funny. But I mean, Tara's also been like in the same way that the musical theater thing has opened up for Gab. I mean, I think the film thing has really opened up for Tara. Like she's
Hmm.
really, like finding an audience for her voice, which is awesome. Gab's been making her way through Tara's book, Low Road Forever. Been on her nightstand for a while, and she's making her way through it. And I think that the rock and roll thing is like I love this playing with Dance Movie. We had a lot of fun making the last record, and it's a great bunch of people, and I wish I got to spend more time with them. But in terms of what's commanding Tara's attention and rewarding her attention, you know what I mean? Like she's really like her film is great, obviously. Compulsus, fantastic film. And I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say that because I have terrible taste in films, and I usually don't. I've seen more than one Transformers movie in the theater, so maybe I should hush up about that. But I did think it was great.
Can you
really
reword that so she can actually put a tag on there that you said that if you like Transformers, you'll like this movie?
Oh God, she will skin me alive. I
I
can't wait.
know, because I
Never speak of this again.
her and I don't know each other, but I know of her mostly from her podcast that she had.
Okay.
And we did meet once, so she wouldn't be surprised by this statement. I mentioned it to her. I I know from listening to that, like, she doesn't like my stereotype in general when she talks.
Like
So I'm like,
podcast guy is
I don't have a place to get in on a conversation there. So at the time when I started doing this, like, I was full tilts, like, comic book stuff all the time.
nice.
And on her podcast, she, like, hates people that like superhero movies. And right near the end of her podcast, she took a shot at a couple small towns for a tour,
Okay.
and one of them's New Glasgow, which is where I'm from.
Right on.
But that said, I'm aware of a lot of people that know all of you guys, and I've only ever heard great things about her. So I'm a fan of Tara, even though I don't think that she would probably find very much appealing about the person on the other end of the camera right now. Well, I'll change that someday. Maybe she'll hear this, and someday we'll meet in the
I'll
city.
vouch for you. How about that? I'll put in a good word for you.
There you go. Good on you. Yeah, no, I am a fan of her, so I
Same.
would like to change that at some point. So going on to, like I said, you had multiple backups with your All Right Already project.
Tara being one of them.
So yeah. So who is with you now? Because when was the last time you had anything out? Was it a couple of years ago now?
Oh, I mean, so I am ponderously slow at producing music.
Hmm.
Recording process is probably my least favorite part of the process, which I know is not true for a lot of people. I'm more of a performer. I write. I enjoy writing. I'm not an especially prolific writer, and I don't do it for a living. And that's I've always kind of thought that like I usually have some kind of other gig on the go that pays the bills, and then it affords me the latitude to do what I want creatively. So I don't feel obliged to release regularly. I don't feel obliged to put something out I'm not fully happy with. And to that end, I turd polished this record for like 8 years.
Yeah.
And I hadn't. So the first this band used to be called Great Plains, and
Hmm.
that band put a record out in 2008 or 7 or 8. that actually made the Polaris long list. The long list was a different affair then. It was a much longer list, basically, and they didn't publish it. And then they made the long list be a thing to have there be more anticipatory rollout promo-y stuff, I think, after the fact. But so we made that record with Jay Lapointe, and it was Lockie McDonald and Jeffers Lennox, who are friends of mine. Jeffers, that was one of the only bands he was ever in Halifax. He was here going to school. He's now a professor in the States, has his PhD. Brilliant guy, historian. And Lockie McDonald's been in lots of punk bands. He's from Cape Breton as well. There's usually some Cape Breton connection to some of the folks in the band. And it's been a ton of people over the years. Like since then, it's been like, Andrew Wiseman and Simon Outhit, and Jason Boutour, of course, for years on guitar, Jason Zito from Last Culture Noble on bass, Adam Warren, we him as Wants now, also on drums, I think, for a while. Yeah, there's been all kinds of people. I think Andrew Wiseman's played 2 different instruments in the band. There's been all kinds of folks, but now it's Dylan Mombourquette and AJ Boutilier. So Dylan from Broke 182, I guess, is probably his best known project right now. They played lots of, or a few anyway, East Coast emo nights, both here and in Moncton and some other locations in New Brunswick, and did quite well with that. He's also a Cape Bretoner like myself, and then AJ, of course, is in Designosaur and Book Buddies, and he plays, I think, some bass and some bass synth for Wants, and plays for, I'm trying to think, he's in Cluttered, and he's in
Out of Controller. Is he in that too?
Yeah. Like he's it's like, we're all like, all of us in the band sort of have this reputation as being, how should I put it delicately, like musically promiscuous, I guess.
Yeah. Well, Maddie Grace has been on here maybe 3 times. If it's not 3 times, I'll get a hold of Maddie and we'll make it 3 times, so I'm right.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so I'm aware of AJ and Dylan mostly through Maddie, I guess.
Totally. And speaking of people who are musically promiscuous,
and
prolific, like there can't be a more. She is so, the way she just, especially during the pandemic, like especially once the pandemic kicked off, she just started smashing out entire records, entire projects. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, I put 5 records out this year, or 6 records. It's just like, what? And I'm still, I got through some of the guitar tracking on my record this year. Like I think. So yeah, so she and I couldn't be further apart in terms of our output. I don't think, in terms of how much she's capable of producing versus myself, but yeah, so it took a long time. We did put out a little 2-song EP in, it must have been 2013 or 14.
Okay.
2 songs, Pink and Orange and Harmony, which were songs that sort of like probably could have gone on the first record, Home of the New Totem, but weren't complete at that point. I wasn't ready to record them, so put those out. We had ambitions of doing a 7-inch, but never came to fruition, so it's just a Bandcamp 2-song release. And yeah, and that brings us basically up to the current. That we had a few compilation appearances. So the Thrush Hermit tribute comp, we did Pink is the Color, which is a really old Thrush Hermit song, and we also did a cover of Regret on the Plum Tree tribute record, which they're a huge influence on me. Like, the one thing I'll mention about the record is it is entirely electric 12-string. There's no 6-string on this record. And it's 4 different electric 12s that I use, because it's all I play now, basically. I do have some 6s, but I went for a while without really owning a solid body 6. I went years without owning one, even though that's what I came up on. I just got really into 12, and just I'm enjoying. It makes my kind of not so adventurous playing sound more adventurous. Like little single runs kind of sound more impressive, so it suits my playing. I'm more of a rhythm player, but yeah, I do go a long time between releases. I've got stuff in the kitty now. I've got 2 songs more or less like written, ready to go, and like I'm working on bits of others I've been accumulating over the last few years, but I've felt guilty working on them almost. I'm like, no, I got to finish this damn record. And so the record is me on every instrument, which is one of the reasons it took so long. So I, wrote, produced, performed, recorded, mixed, everything but mastered, basically. I took it to Jay Lapointe for mastering, which I'm really glad I did, because being able to go to the person who's mastering your record and hear his beautiful environment. He has this Northward Acoustics built environment out at his mastering studio. It's fantastic, and I'm really glad. And we did go through 1 or 2 rounds of changes, because I did have very specific things I was looking for. So, but I'm really happy with the result. Really glad I chose him to do it. But everything else except for the guest appearances is me. So it's a lot when you're running tape for yourself too. So that dynamic is, it's good because you have utter privacy and you don't worry about messing up, and you can just kind of like get into that, especially for vocal takes. I really prefer it for vocal takes, just being able to do them on my own time. But when you don't have a deadline, long as you want. And so I did. And then some.
Yeah, I give myself arbitrary deadlines that I assume from the person I've interviewed. Now, you do what's September 1st is your release date?
Yeah, so that's when the record comes out. We'll be releasing it completely to Bandcamp. It's available for pre-order right now on Bandcamp, and you can hear 2 songs right off the hop. I'm encouraging people to wish list it for the first because it is Bandcamp Friday, and that's one of the reasons I picked it. It's really going to be a focus for us. We're actually withholding the record from Spotify and Amazon. Most artists are in a position where they need the exposure or they need the revenue or one of the two. They just need that number to be high for, for applying for grants or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really need any of those things. This is very much a labor of love, and I just don't have to. And so there's all kinds of people who aren't really in that position. Like if you're in like a sweat equity band and like one person wants to withhold it from Spotify and the other ones don't, like it's tricky because there is revenue and there is exposure. And arguably, there's more value in Spotify as a portal, as a discovery portal, than there is as a revenue stream. But I just don't have to, and I think that Daniel Ek is trash. And I think the way he has devalued art, it's difficult to think of any one person who has devalued music more, like one person than Daniel Ek. And so we're just not. We're pushing it to Tidal because we think that they remunerate artists more fairly. And every other, I checked every other individual little obscure regional only, streaming platform on TuneCore or whatever it was I used to push it to those services, but I did not check the Spotify box or the Amazon box, and I don't plan to. I'm going to try and stick to my guns, and I don't think anything will change because of it, but I just feel better about it because, again, so many people are not really in a position where they can do that for a variety of reasons. So
yeah, you're not the only person I've had on here that has had basically the same statements as far as those platforms. I have heard that Tidal is probably paying back the best, and Spotify. Well, most recently I've heard a few times, and I've seen what some people have gotten paid, and I'm like, wow, that's not worth the effort.
It's pitiful.
To your point, that's not why you do it. If that's the kind of money you're getting, like that's not really why you're doing it. So you don't want to put too much effort into just forcing it down that one area.
Yeah, and we don't really have international ambitions either. Like I don't myself like doing, and having worked in the industry for so long, like when I worked at Music Nova Scotia as its technical director, you're on the industry side at that point. You're seeing that part of it and like the B2B festival part of it and how it works on the inside and yeah, I don't need to play for international buyers. I don't think. I just don't have the ambition to I have a full-time job. I can't really go tour a record. I can't devote the time that I think people will be looking for and it would be necessary to go to that level with it. And so, we're going to play some regional shows. We're going to put some music out. And that's kind of all I'm looking for. So I don't really need to, there's a lot of the hoops, there's people who are much more, they have higher ambitions for their music career.
Oh yeah.
That are in a position again where they have to do these things. There's all kinds of additional things they have to do, like degrading things they have to do that I don't have to do. So I'm really trying to live it up in terms of how I'm just going to do whatever I want. And it, even in terms of releasing the record, like the other aspects of like promo and whatever, it seems like, and from talking to Trevor Murphy, who you mentioned, like the artist has gone out of the music press almost in ways. Like it's not like I feel like I talked to him and like he was so frustrated with like it's so hard to predict what kind of uptake you're going to get if you start working a record to the sort of what qualifies as the music media these days, that it's just like it feels like a dishonest promise to make to people, so that in ways it's like, because I have a lot of old well, you put your 75 CDs in the padded mailers and you mail them to the campus radio station. I'm old as hell, right? So I'm still thinking we don't have a near-term plan to do physical units for this record, but I digress. Like I had very dated ideas of what you do to promote a record. So I'm relearning all that stuff now. I'm learning about okay, this, you got to push this stuff to TuneCore and the Earshot distro and these sorts of things, and finding out how this stuff works and relearning all these things in the same way I kind of relearned recording as I was doing it. Because I had done recording in 2003. I had a little project studio at the Pavilion where myself and Seth Smith from Dog Day would produce records for punk bands in exchange for really, really cheap. We didn't pay any rent basically. It was a pretty awesome deal, and we made some fun records. And so, but I hadn't touched it in a while. I hadn't touched it in years when I came back to like, okay, it's time to work up a recording workflow and, you know, get a DAW and get a sound card and get, you know, get all these things that I hadn't had for a long time. So lots of getting back on the horse with this project, but I got there eventually. Probably slower than most.
So will you be able to do any, like, I know you just said like you're not looking to do like any big type of tour type thing off it, but and I imagine with a large gap besides learning the ropes on how the whole distribution stuff works and the marketing works and all that type of thing, you have to build the audience back up again. There'd be a lot of people that remember the name and
Yeah,
people know who you are, but to build up a public audience outside of your core associations that would show up to the show, you got to rebuild that. But do you even have plans to perform live since it was you that
oh yeah,
recorded everything?
oh absolutely. I mean that's one of the fun things about the band is that I get to hear like someone else's interpretation of like
Mhm,
you get these permutations, you get these interesting because like I really like the thing where you know you change the song up in a very deliberate way in the live presentation, so that the people are sort of getting something additional. Like it's not like going and just hearing the CD. It's like you're adding value to it for them.
mhm,
So I like that, and I love the way that the live band brings that because it's because you know yes I played all the parts on the record but like and they learned them and then they become permuted over time because you know you just people are imperfect and they make creative changes and that's one of the coolest things about it. So absolutely we have plans to play live. I'm just not gonna go do Reaperbon. Like
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not gonna go. I'm not gonna do the like. I'm not gonna go play North by Northeast. I don't care. Like I don't have to. I don't have to go to the Festival of Broken Dreams and and degrade myself and make a bunch of flyers and watch them be trampled on the floor of the hotel. Like I don't have to do it. Other people have to do that and go and cry in their hotel rooms, and I don't want to. So I don't have to. But I want to play regional shows. I want to do like you know PEI, Moncton,
Mhm.
Fredericton, Sydney. Obviously, I'm from Sydney. Dylan's from Sydney. We've applied for Gobblefest. Shout out Gobblefest. Program us, please.
This is going to be on Caper Radio at some point too. So
Amazing.
yeah.
I got my start in. I put in a few at campus radio actually at CAPR, like right when they moved into their new building, and before then when they were a little janitorial closet they had walled off, a little booth into. Yeah, no, I really fondly remember my times at CBU as a student and as a campus radio participant. I got involved. I was involved in some of the first Gobblefests on the production side. And that's a festival that actually is longer running than Celtic Colors, if you believe it.
Oh yeah. I
In your
actually
Celtic Colors.
we're going to get cut off here in less than. All right. And we're back.
All right.
All right. So yeah, we had an interruption in our conversation due to the duration of these Zoom calls. At some point, I'll have to find a way to be able to actually pay for all my subscriptions so I can have these calls a little bit longer. And for anyone out there listening to this that wants to be on one of these, you're also welcome to sit on my couch here in Glasgow for anyone that feels obliged to drive down. When we did have sunny weather, I had a couple takers that drove down. We did some outside ones, but then this summer in Nova Scotia has been like since the wildfires, it's been nothing but rain.
Yeah,
It's
it's true. I
insane.
mean, I guess people prayed for rain and they sure got it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I shouldn't complain. It's we definitely needed it at the time. So
It's true.
yeah, so you have the new album coming out, and probably by the time some people are listening to this, it's out right now. So feel free to hit pause and go listen to that and come back. We took a quick little break, so you can too. And you were talking about live performances at one point there. We're talking. So do you know anybody in particular that you want to be playing with, or do you have people lined up already to play with, or is it a little
Like, you
premature?
mean like other bands to play with?
No, like as part of your band to perform with you to perform the album.
Oh, well, yeah, it would be Dylan and AJ. Yeah.
Yeah, for all of it.
Yeah. I mean, so here's what I did. I wrote second guitar parts for the whole record, and now I miss them when I don't hear them. And so now I ostensibly have to recruit another guitarist. I've been trying to get by with looping. I've been trying to get by with like looping the rhythm part and playing the lead part.
Mhm.
Kind of stuff in the live shows with varying levels of success. We have a bunch of craziness going on with Dylan's setup and my setup, or like my pedal board. When I change presets to the next song, it tells his metronome what the tempo of the song is, and tells my looper which loop to pull up, because some of the songs have like a little playback that begins the song. And others, I try to loop some of the rhythm part transparently while I'm playing, and then when I go for like a lead or a melodic part, I play back the little sample. And so there's ostensibly some skill in it. You're not just playing to playback.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not that skillful at it. So I'll probably end up going back to having a second guitarist. Jason Vautour was our second guitarist for years, but he got really busy with Jesse Brown and some other folks. So we parted ways, and that was right as we were about to record his guitars. So I sort of I was like, oh, well, now I need to put guitars on this record now, so I guess I need to write those parts. And so I did. And I'm happy with how that came out. And I'm happy about the record being 100% 12-string. It's a point of pride for me. But yeah, so we probably are going to have to recruit someone to play second guitar. And now that I have all these amazing women's voices on the record too, I'm inclined for that person to be a woman. So yeah, so I've got some thinking to do and some recruiting. And I have some people I would ask, if I had my druthers, of course, but there's lots of great guitarists out there. I don't know how many of them have 12-string guitars. I could spare one. I have 4 electric, so I could spare them one for a while if they wanted to borrow one. But yeah, so maybe if there's anyone out there who's feeling like doing some singing and some 12-string in a loud band, that's complicated, hit me up.
And so we did mention Alicia earlier in the interview, well, right off the beginning of the interview, I guess. But she's on this as well?
Yeah, so she sings on Oh My, which is one of the 2 songs that is available right now on Bandcamp that you can listen to. And Alicia and I have been musical collaborators for a long time. I would sing backups for her band Yellow, and she and I and Carolyn Leone, all of us from Cape Breton, would do this sort of Christmas show where we kind of all get together and play. Each of us would do a solo set. We would play a few songs together. So yeah, I've been collaborating with her for a long time, and she asked me to play drums on her most recent record, which you held up earlier in the podcast, which was a lot of fun. And I think that was the second time I phoned in a drum performance from what you see here, basically. So this is my drum streaming setup, and it's multi-track audio for all the mics and everything. And so it's actually not a big deal to just record what I have, and I've got pretty good sounding multi-track. There's still some things I could do to treat the room. I've got a few panels back here, like some. Let me show you. Like, so back here behind me, you can see some acoustic panels, and there's some more elsewhere in the room too. But yeah, it's a pretty decent setup. I did the We Should Have Been Plumbers record, which is Jillian and Kim from Like a Motorcycle, their project. So I did the drums for that the same way. That was the trial run, I suppose. And then I did that kind of thing again, like just recorded. They sent me an instrumental, and I played along to it and sent them back waves. For Alicia's record, that's Jamie Folds, who produced or engineered it anyway. Actually, I think I would argue that Alicia produced it, but he mixed it. I think they co-produced it. I'm not clear, but anyway. So yeah, so she's fantastic and has an incredible voice, and I really wanted to have her somewhere on here, and this, in my view, was the right use of her voice. And so that's one of the songs you can hear now, and it's about my broken down van. And one of my favorite, I guess I don't know if it's a metaphor. So I use I don't know if you know about the Greek humors, like there was like 4 fluids in your body that the Greeks believed had certain properties, and I use that as like a metaphor for the varying fluids in a vehicle and what they mean, and then their colors, they kind of match up. So one of my favorite little lyrical turns of phrase I think that I've ever written. But and Alicia's performance is fantastic, and I call it my bro country song. It's about a broken down vehicle. So yeah, so she's on there, and Maura Whitman, who's sort of a pop sensation, is on the other song that's available now on Bandcamp, which is called Run Like Pamplona. And that's a song about cycling with traffic, which I did for a long time. I was a commuter cyclist for quite a long time here in Halifax. And it's quite dangerous, and I've had some collisions with cars on the bike. And so I actually wrote that song for a songwriting competition. HRM sponsored a cycling-related songwriting competition, very niche contest, and myself. And I don't know if you know Archie Gillis. Archie is, I think, the inventor or developer of like this guitar, this microtonal guitar that you can move the frets around on or move capos around.
Okay.
It's a whole thing. But he was the winner of the contest. His song, I think, was more accessible. and more uplifting. Didn't talk about it anyway because, like, you know, Pamplona is also a song in memory of my friend Kyle McMullen, who died on a bike in the Halifax Rotary, the Armadale Rotary, years and years ago. Kyle was an MC and b-boy, like breakdancer, who I knew from Glace Bay, who moved up here, who was tragically killed on his bike. And so that song is in his memory and makes reference to him and his old graffiti tag, Aziz. And so it's more of a heavy piece of music, and it's complicated. There's conflicting things happening in the chorus where I'm singing and Maura singing at the same time, but we're singing different things that line up together at the end, and the words are almost the same words, so it kind of dips in and out, and there's a lot going on, and I try to have there be a lot going on in the music in general. And so yeah, so that's and Maura is, like, again, very much a pop star, so it's not the kind of thing that you would hear Maura on. She has a fantastic voice, obviously.
Yeah, I'm aware of her. She actually, one of our live shot performances on our playlist on the YouTube channel is of her, and I'm aware of her as the pop artist. So I was excited to see her name on there, so I was interested to hear the song. But when I listened to it, I was like, well, that's her, but that's not what she does. So I was a little surprised, happily surprised. But how did you approach her saying, like,
I did approach her, and I approached her because she's a cyclist. She's a super competitive cyclist, right? I think in a few disciplines. I think like MTB and road, if I'm not mistaken. I forget if she does road competitively, but I know she does MTB. And yeah, so I wanted someone with that connection to the song personally. And I love what she does. I became aware of her when I was working at Music Nova Scotia, when she put out, there was a single called Roulette that she put out that I was like, this rips. This sounds great. So yeah, so I was really happy to have her on there. And also, so Katie Wayne and Katie Lamond. So Katie Wayne from Shelley and Katie Lamond from Like a Motorcycle are both on a song called By the Numbers, where they're doing their like screamy hardcore thing. Because I got sort of like force fed a bunch of hardcore at like the height of the Halifax hardcore scene at the turn of the century. And so I developed an appreciation for that music through little choice of my own. I just didn't know. I just like I showed up one day at the pavilion, and Condon, the legendary Condon McLeod, was there, and I talked to him about doing some audio. I think I was like 20 or 21 at the time, and he hired me as their sort of volunteer audio technician. And I proceeded to be very immediately directly confronted with hardcore music that I had to pay very close attention to and try to make sound good in a concrete box with very young people with very loud amplifiers. But it was a really formative time for our music scene, especially the all ages part of it. Like that kind of all ages show is almost unheard of now. You're talking about 200 kids on a regular basis at an all ages show, just losing their minds. Like incredible hardcore bands. It was a really, really big scene here at the time. And so I got to be part of that. And so there's that element of what I do creatively now, because I'm kind of all over the place. I've played with lots of singer-songwriters. I've been Classified's drummer. I've played in other rock bands. I was in Ruby Jean and the Thoughtful Bees, which was like an experimental like dance band with Colin from Scientists of Sound. So I'm kind of all over the place. There's all kinds of things I'm interested in musically, and I can't ever find one project that kind of covers it all. So I end up doing all these different things, and so you hear all those different influences on the records. So the two Katies doing some awesome Alexis on Fire hype person screams on Numbers, and then Alana York sang on a song called Leviathan. And Leviathan's not the Leviathan in the story is a sort of a metaphor in the song is a metaphor for urbanization. It's a metaphor for people being drawn to Toronto, basically. Which is funny, and I feel like it aged poorly because now everyone's moving home because it got so expensive to live in Toronto. So I feel like it didn't age as well as some of the songs might have. But Alana is or has been, among other things, a marine biologist, and she actually had a pretty gnarly scuba accident years and years ago. So knowing that it was a sort of that it had this sort of like marine biology kind of angle to the song, and there's all kinds of things that. In my mind, it's a squid. I don't think the original Leviathan's a squid. There's all kinds of different Leviathans in a literary sense, but I wanted her involved for that reason, and her voice was the right choice again for the song. She had a stroke recently, like last year, that she is recovering from, and I've been in touch with her and sent her the record, and she's doing well. There's a video that the QE2 put out about her recovery that you can go watch on YouTube, and I am hoping to involve her and the other guest performers in some kind of release show at some point, where ideally everyone who sang on the record also plays. And the last guest, of course, is Tara Thorne, from Dance Movie. Again, another longtime collaborator of mine. I played on like the first or the second Dance Movie record and the most recent one.
Mhm.
And so again, varying roles. I think like drums. I'm trying to think. What did I do on the first Dance Movie record? It was bass on the second record, and then drums on the most recent ones. And I guess I've been the drummer of record of that band for a while now. But yeah, so I really and Tara's voice is among my favorites in Halifax. And again, I met Tara through the coast, like not necessarily through performing music, but through journalism and through just seeing her at the office, and then was pleasantly surprised by how awesome she is musically, because you say music journalist getting into performing,
Mhm.
there's all kinds of ways that could go, but she's enormously talented, great writer. We have a lot in common musically in terms of we both love Tori Amos. We're both huge
Oh yeah.
Tori Amos fans.
It's like a 50-50 split on the podcast. But if I mention her to somebody, they're either a big fan or they're like, I'm not, I don't know who that is.
Yeah, I mean, she sort of, she came to prominence like 20 years ago now. So
Yeah.
it's sort of like it's kind of like almost like Patti Smith or somebody like that, or like I'm trying to think of somebody else from that era who might not have as much prominence. I mean, obviously, like, Tori's fans are very dedicated, and there are still lots of them. And she still tours.
Yeah, I saw recent stuff, so she's still active.
Totally. So yeah, so I got to be involved with some, I got to exactly like who I wanted on each of the songs. In terms of guest appearances, and yeah, just kind of just give do the things I can't do, like these are voices I can't be, right? So that's kind of why I wanted to have them involved.
And did you pick females just to counter your own male voice, or is it because it's
In the
more
sense of
so
I
the
think like
opposite?
that's a thing I can't do, right? That's the
Yeah.
I can sound like me, but I can't sound like them. Like that's the thing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that was my choice in or my motivation for choosing them, I think, is like, well, this is the, these are the things I can't really do. Like, I don't really have a very convincing scream, for example.
Mhm.
I can do it for a few minutes. I can fake it. And I used to, when there used to be Rockin' for Dollars, I used to have an improvisatory metal band with Jason Botour. I would play drums and sing, and he would play guitar. So he can legitimately play metal. But I can't do any, like, metal is a whole other, I don't think people realize this about metal. It is a whole other level of discipline and athleticness and esoteric knowledge, and like you can't really be a slouch. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
can't really like, it's just a higher level of like, metal band guys, like if you share a spot, like a rehearsal spot with a metal band, like if you go there like on a Saturday night at 9 p.m., they're there practicing. I mean, they're having a few, but they're there practicing, and
Mhm.
you aren't. You're just there to pick your gear up or whatever. So, right, I wasn't. I'm not as
Yeah.
disciplined as they are, I guess is what I mean to say. But, yeah. So it's really, yeah, it's a completely different kind of affair, I guess.
Yeah, I would say my experiences would be similar, that I have friends that are metal musicians, and even though I have a lot of friends that don't like that type of music, if I ever get them out to a show, they always end up mesmerized.
You got to respect the
But
hustle. You got to
yeah,
respect
like
that.
it's
Like,
yeah, there's a huge amount of skill there. Whether or not the final product's something that somebody's individually interested in is different, but yeah, the talent's definitely there. You can't get away from that. And do you plan to be exploring different sounds, and since you have all that background, or you
I,
getting to flex everything with all right already?
I am. I still think that there isn't really one project that kind of gives me the full, like, it's just, it would be hard to make something cohesive. I think that touched on everything I kind of want to do, because
Mhm.
it is everything from like very heavy music to, like Becca from Book Buddies and I have been messing around with some like kind of electronic songs lately. Like we both like electronic music. I'm discovering a lot of electronic music through doing the live drum streaming, like through taking requests. I got a lot of requests for, grimy dubstep and like, other EDM genres too. And so I'm learning a bunch of that stuff, and I kind of enjoy it in general. Like I enjoy like D&B and jungle a lot. And so I'm kind of like rediscovering some of my interest in that. But like I don't think there's ways for all that stuff to fit together in one project. So I'm trying,
No.
with like with I'll write already. I want it to be literary. Like I want it to be wordy. I want the lyrics to kind of like mean things, and I want there to be 12 string, and I want there to be kind of there's these elements of like bossa nova almost that pop up again and
Mm-hmm.
again, like just rhythmically. Like it's very rhythmic music. I start with a rhythm guitar part and a rhythm in mind usually, and that's the core of like how the songs start. And so yeah, I wanted to have this like there are sort of characteristics I want the music to have basically, and so I'll still I think be trying to work within those parameters. I think this record is heavier than the last one was. Like the last one was more along the lines of, and I think it was kind of like people kind of thought of it as like a like Weaker Thans or Hawksley Workman, which I know is a weird comparison, but in terms of like rock singer songwriter is the
Mm-hmm.
personality there. You know what I mean? I think that's because the songs tended to be a little more literary and less like hey hey rah rah, like you know, like I want the lyrics to be substantial, and that isn't always the case with this kind of music. Sometimes it is, but yeah. So that was something I wanted about it, and something that I continue to want to do with it. But yeah, so I still have to do all kinds of other projects. Basically, I'm still wanting to like Gab and I have been talking about doing some duo shows together where I'll play my upright electric bass and back her up. And yeah, like the electronic thing with Book Buddies and or with Becca, I guess we've talked a little bit about that. I'm still interested in doing like I'd love to pick up an electric bass gig. I got a sweet bass a while back, and I don't really have a regular use for it right now. So yeah, there's still all kinds of things that I think I will need to do to completely fill out my sort of musical desires. I don't think there's any one project that's ever gonna do it. But with new sounds, like I don't know, I'm just kind of take this whatever formula that I have for this band and just sort of like see it to fruition, I suppose, whatever that ends up being. Like more songs that are like complicated, kind of rockin' with a lot of words in them.
Yeah, you did something with Laser Mortis back not long ago.
Yes, I've
You
been
mentioned that back.
collaborating with Monica, yeah, from Laser Mortis, or Monica, who is Laser Mortis. So
Mhm.
I played one of her songs on the stream and sent her. I posted the video to Instagram and sent it to her, and she wrote to me and she wanted me to, I think, play drums on one of the songs that she's working on for the record. And I gave it a few listens, and I'm like, I hear vocals, and I wrote vocals and recorded them and sent them to her. And so we're working on a little collaboration now too, where I think she's kind of like picking at various aspects of the record because she is more recently, I think, maybe thinking about incorporating vocals into her music more because like she's
Mhm.
largely an instrumental artist. Um, I did audio for her show at Propeller Arcade recently. I've been back into doing some live audio again for select clients,
Mhm.
uh, of which she is one, and she put on a great show for the folks, and the tunes are great. And she played the song that we're working on as an instrumental, but yeah, there are words for it now. It's called Beyond the Veil. I think it still remains to be seen. Like it's still in development, like, so we might still change direction and go back to drums with it.
Mhm.
It remains to be seen, but yeah, she's an artist I'm really excited about because I've really enjoyed a lot of sort of like synthwave stuff lately. Like I'm really into like this is a Carpenter Brute hoodie I'm wearing right now. Big synthwave artist from France, and then Gunship. I'm super into Gunship. Other bands like Perturbator to a lesser extent. So yeah, so that those kind of sounds are interesting to me as well. Like that, the '80s nostalgia stuff is obviously it's a very easy way to manipulate me
Yeah,
sonically because the nostalgia value is the Stranger Things value is certainly there. So yeah, so I'm excited about what might happen with that project and what's going to happen for Monica because I think she's a great artist and she has a great vision for what she does.
and I didn't mention it when you were talking about it, but I heard that Rockin' for Dollars is back.
What?
Yeah, like in the
Really?
last like month or so. In one of my interviews not too long
Where?
ago, somebody mentioned that it was a thing again.
Where is it?
So I think Gus's.
At Gus's, really?
I think, but
Who plays
I
there?
don't. I'm not going to confirm that because I know people that do watch this go there and would know. So if it's CJ or somebody, like, send me an email and come on the show and we'll talk about it because a lot of people that watch the show would go if they knew what was happening for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'll see CJ tomorrow night, so I'll ask him because I'm
Yeah,
judging the Pavilion Battle of the Bands tomorrow night. It will have already have happened,
awesome.
of course, by the time this comes out. But happy to see the Pavilion starting up again. Again, I was involved for years. Like I
Hmm.
got involved in 1998 and was on and off various positions on their board when they became a nonprofit. There was their audio technician. I helped build their stage. I was involved for quite a long time, probably about 18 years actually. I was involved with the Pavilion, and so I'm glad to see it starting up again. I'm glad to see the lighthouses involved because I think the pavilion originally was an HRM rec program with like
Mhm.
funding the rec department and like a salary for the person running it and I think it was really important. And I mean, it was always a bad fit because the rec people don't really get it. Like
Mhm.
they're sports people, right? Like in the same way that like I've worked in a few hockey rinks now, producing shows like for Music Nova Scotia. You're working at like the Rath Eastlink Center, for example, in Truro, and the sports people are kind of like in charge, and like there's a lot about the music side of it that is a bit unfamiliar to them. They're like, what do you mean
Mhm.
we have to pull all the glass out? Like the when it's like, well, you have to, it's going to sound like ass. So
Yeah.
like, so that's the thing. Like, and it's the same thing with the rec program that like the sports people don't really know what to do with it. And that's who your rec department is for the most part.
Mhm.
So they eventually like they cut it as a program, and there was problems with the building. Like the fire people freaked out about the building because it had no civic address and it had no crash bars in some of the doors. There was some code violations, and they shut the whole thing down in 2003. And that was the end of it as an HRM rec program. But then it started up again as a nonprofit. Well, first it was run as a private business for a while, where someone was renting the space basically from the city and putting
Okay.
it, and then it became a nonprofit for a while, and had a board of directors as you do. And then they lost the building, obviously. So now they're starting to do some programming at the Lighthouse, which is a space I'm kind of excited about in general. I think it's good to have a culture incubator like that,
Mhm.
like Music Nova Scotia's in there, and like there's a bunch of other arts organizations in there. So yeah, I think that's a cool space that, even though it's a dilapidated building in ways, they're putting some work into it to improve it, I think. And I can't wait to. We're actually also going to play there.
Oh, awesome.
I have a show booked now that isn't announced yet, but we're going to be playing. I should get the date out of my calendar here because this will likely be after this comes out. But it's going to be. Look now. I think it's like the 20. It is the 27th of September.
Oh, awesome.
House Arts Theater. We're going to do round 2. We'll be the featured band of the Battle of the Bands. That's round 2 of the thing I'm judging. Round 1 of tomorrow night.
Cool.
So we're looking forward to that. That's a really promising venue that you don't get tons of opportunities to play at. So yeah, I'm excited about that. That's going to be fun. And it's good to see the pavilion, happening again. I'm glad CJ is undertaking that again, that he's leading the charge there. And I think he's in charge now at Gus's too, of the entertainment. So I'm glad to see his smiling face at the bar.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited. I don't know CJ well, but I know him through the podcast a little bit and a few small interactions watching some shows. I definitely happy to hear somebody's running things that I'm aware is a fan of all that stuff too. Much to your point, like it's important for the people doing it to kind of know what they're doing. No offense to anybody, but yeah, sometimes if they don't have their finger on the pulse, they might miss the point sometimes.
Yeah, and that's the thing with young people being directly involved and having ownership of all ages shows. Like there's up in Sydney now there's young people starting to put shows on again, and they have some support from some older folks in the scene, but like
Mhm.
the young folks are in the driver's seat and picking the talent and picking the venues and all that, and so like I think that's really important. I think it's really important to keep young people involved in all aspects of the shows.
Mhm.
And for people of my generation or whatever, just sort of provide support. Like if you can go talk to somebody on the board of the church hall they want to rent or whatever kind of thing, like provide that kind of support. But yeah, I think it's really important for and CJ is like obviously like well beyond his high school years now.
Yeah.
But in general, like yeah, it's really really necessary, I think, to make sure that like there are young people directly involved in producing the shows as well, and then to have some ownership of the shows.
Yeah, no, it's very promising. I say everything old is new again. So maybe we'll see CV locals come back too. Maybe the timing is right. Is there a song that you would like to play off with for those that have stuck around to see if they could hear a new gem?
Let's do Oh My.
Perfect.
I think it's one of the two that are available that you can go listen to on. We haven't really picked a single yet. Again, I just kind of like made 2 songs available, and I guess if there is a single, it's one of those 2 songs. I mean, Oh My, I think, is the more radio friendly of the 2. It's a little more accessible, a little bit of a pop song. It has little tiny moments of dissonance that were mistakes that I left it on purpose almost. Like there's a little bit of like it says like, something doesn't sound right. but then it resolves to this like this nice G chord, and the line where it happens is like it's not fine. There's like it's so it kind of like I was listening to it, I'm like, oh, that part is wrong. I should retrack it. And then the more I listened to it, then I was like, no, I kind of like it there. I kind of like that it kind of like there's a little bit of tension, and then it resolves to a nice open G chord, the most satisfying thing you can do on a guitar, arguably. So that's so other than a brief moment of dissonance that a song can have as a treat, it's probably the more radio friendly of the two. So let's go with Oh My.
Awesome. And looking forward to catching it live at some point in the foreseeable future. So maybe that September date. I've been talking about all ages shows in the Pavilion for 2 years now and saying how I wish it was around, and now it is, and you're playing there. So
yeah,
I guess I'll see you at that show.
Awesome. I'll see you there.
All right. Thank you. And everyone stick around for your musical treat. And there should be links down below. Thanks again.